All right, we are live here on the internet for the All In on Lead Conversion webinar, where we are going all in on lead conversion. Thank you all for joining us. We're super excited to have you. I see a bunch of you funneling in. We had over 500 people registered for this webinar. So something about lead conversion is interesting to a lot of you right now, and I think you're really smart for investing some time in this topic. Couple housekeeping rules, and then I'm going to shut up because we have a lot smarter people here in the room. We have a rock star panel ready to go here. This is recorded, so we will be recording this. If you're registered for this, you will automatically get a recording in your email right after this. We want this to be interactive. In fact, I've been known to give away Amazon gift cards to people who interact in the chat. So not only is this webinar free, if you're participating, we might actually be paying you to be here in this webinar. And the only thing that we ask is interact, hype us up. We want the energy, we want the questions, we want to bring as much value as we possibly can to you. Let's get this thing going. So there's
not only that, Zach, but we have one of the best coaches in the industry here with us, right? We need to point that out.
We do, yeah. Aaron, so here's what's funny. I'll tell everyone this about Aaron. I started sending Aaron emails like, hey, Aaron, here's your panelist link to jump on. And his autoresponder says, hey, I'm sorry if I'm a little late to respond. I'm in like 12 hours of coaching calls every single day. I'll get back to you as soon as I'm done with my calls. So that's what I'm so excited about to have you here, Aaron, is you are so in the trenches on this stuff with so many teams. And so we're really excited to learn from you. And thank you specifically for making the time to be here, Aaron. It means a lot.
My pleasure, Zach.
Okay. All right. We're recorded. We're in the chat. So first thing you all can do for me in the chat, let me know where you're calling in from. I'm always interested to know where everyone's calling in from. And then with that, tell me where you're calling in from and what's the number one takeaway, the number one thing that you hope you can learn from this webinar. All right. Drop that in the chat. We're going to do a quick round of intros. So 60 seconds. I want to hear from Peter, Brian, Aaron. Who are you? What do you do? And why are you so passionate about this topic, this lead conversion topic, right? Aaron, why don't we start with you? Give us a little intro on you.
Fantastic. Thanks, team. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Quick little intro. I've been in real estate since 1987. My father owned a local RE/MAX in Southern California. I'm currently a real estate broker in 12 states. I owned a mortgage company with about 3,000 originators, about 280 offices. I've been a coach with Tom Ferry since 2016. I'm now a speaker and mastery coach for them, which means I coach teams and larger clients historically, but all over the world. I coach the top team in Portugal, the top team in Prague and Cabo San Lucas. So a lot of international clients. To give you some background on me, I ran a team of real estate for many, many, many years with a high level of success. I was coached by my boss's father, Mike Ferry, a long time ago. But I'm also an NLP master practitioner, just certified. So my core competence is skills and conversion and stuff like that, and team culture. So that's who I am.
Love it. Thank you, Aaron. Peter, let's hear from you. Give us a little background on you and why you're passionate about this topic.
Yeah. Thanks, Zach. Fired up to be here. Hi, everyone. Peter Maglathlin, CEO at Sierra Interactive. I've been with the business for more than 2 years now. I've spent the last 15 to 20 years building and scaling a number of different technology companies. Why I'm passionate about this topic, what I wake up thinking about and spend all day thinking about is how we enable our customers to win. And the more leads you're able to convert on a daily, weekly, monthly basis is how you end up winning, right? And so excited to talk about this with two folks I have a lot of respect for. We've got a great relationship with SISU. Our platforms are highly complementary. And Aaron is a wealth of knowledge that we're hopefully going to be able to tap into for all you.
Love it. Thanks, Peter. Brian, go ahead.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Brian Charlesworth, founder of SISU. And I started this business about 8 years ago because I got to dive into my wife's business for about 1.5 years and help her grow it. And at the time, she had 5 agents. She now has about 90 agents. So what SISU's done is really help her be a great leader. But for me, I'm super passionate about the industry. I'm super passionate about making teams and agents and brokerages more effective. And that's everything we do, is to try to streamline your processes and make sure you know your numbers, and know, like, part of knowing your numbers is know, how can I convert higher on leads? So I'm really excited about today's topic. And on that note, excited to dive in.
Love it. Okay, so we're going to get going on this. I wanted to add that we were very strategic about putting these three people together for this topic specifically, right? So if you listen, you got Peter over at Sierra. They've generated millions. I don't even know, it might be more than millions of leads over the past decade, right? Through their clients and through their clients' websites, PPC, all of that. So they've learned a thing or two about generating and converting leads in the CRM, right? Brian's here, SISU. We have thousands and thousands of teams who connect their CRMs to SISU to do analytics. So we've learned a thing or two about tracking from lead created down to closed, dissecting that by agent, ROI. And then, of course, we've got Aaron, who, as we already mentioned, is 12-hour days talking to teams and so in the trenches on this stuff, right? So we've got from top to bottom some experts on lead conversion. We're going to start diving deep into it. So the way we're going to run this is Peter's going to kind of lay some groundwork on the Sierra side. Brian's going to talk a little bit about what we learned on the SISU side. Then we're going to open it up questions, and we're gonna really, Aaron, that's where you're the star of the show, and we're going to be asking you questions of what you're learning in the trenches. All right. So if that sounds good, give me a thumbs up in the chat. Give me some emojis. Give me some energy, and let's get this thing going. Let's make it a good webinar. I'm going to share my screen here, and Peter will jump right into your stuff. Okay.
Great. Yeah, I'll try to keep this relatively brief so we can engage Aaron in the discussion. For those of you that don't know Sierra, this will be really quick. We're a platform that comprises two main components: SEO-powered IDX websites, a CRM that's really powered by a dialer, automations, flexible lead routing, all that stuff. I thought it was important to put on this slide our integration suite, right? Because core to our strategy is our ability to integrate directly with a platform like SISU, who is highly complementary to our business and our platform, and who a lot of our customers use. And so with the combination of Sierra and SISU, you really have a technology stack that enables you to win. So you can move to the next slide, Zach. So the topic today is lead conversion, and I was trying to take a step back from the tactical before we get into the tactical to think about, hey, how should we be thinking about this philosophically? And what I call holy trinity of lead conversion is comprised of three main components. The first is data, right? We're a CRM platform. We're the system of record. At the end of the day, the accuracy and completeness of your lead data is the engine upon which everything else runs, right? If you don't necessarily have the address for where someone lives, or you don't have good data around what the parameters of their search are, there isn't much you can do with that lead. And so a hyper focus, especially in this new normal in real estate, where knowledge brokering is going to be more important, around data is critical. What data enables is personalization, right? If you have certain data around a lead, it enables you to talk about certain neighborhoods, certain price points, certain life stages, components of the sales process. So the unlock that data provides is the ability to engage with leads in a way that is authentic, that understands their circumstances, and that provides them value. But then personalization without automation doesn't scale, right? Sure, you could ask your agents to send, as many manual text messages a day to as many leads as possible, but ultimately that leads to an unorganized mess. And so the three things combined here are what enables a lead conversion system, a machine to work that requires constant iteration, which is where SISU comes in and helps you to evaluate it. So lead conversion is the event we're all seeking to achieve, but it's something that requires an intentional, very purposeful sequence of events to get there, right? There's no silver bullet to lead conversion. There are a number of things you need to get right. in order to achieve it. And we think about this both on a lead level and on a system level, right? Are you engaging with the lead quickly on a cadence that is palatable and with messaging that they actually resonate with? And are you sharing value? Are you demonstrating knowledge, right? Like each and every one of you is the market expert in your local area, and make that shine through. Now, on a system level, is there accountability to the system, right? Do the agents understand the rules of the road? Are they adhering to the rules of the road? Are there consequences if they don't? And then are you able to generate insights around how the system is performing to be able to revise and adapt it and evolve it in a world that's just constantly changing? And you need to get both the lead level and the system level right in order to really see efficiency and scale. And so looking through the lens of the highest performing teams on Sierra, there are really 5 things that I think they do really well. And I'll unpack each of these when it comes to driving higher rates of conversion. The first, which is talked about a lot in this industry, but I don't think can be overstated, is speed to lead, right? I mean, I read a piece of research recently that said 50% plus of consumers end moving forward with the first or second agent that they engage with. And so your ability to be first or second and fast to engage with these customers is mission critical. And I think that's relatively well understood. The second piece is when you're engaging with leads, lymph and non-value driving interactions are only going to actually do you more harm than good. And a big part of what Sierra provides customers is the ability to showcase your expertise and your knowledge about your local area via community pages, via blog posts, via all sorts of content, right? That not only allows you to drive more leads to your site, but that you can then leverage in interacting with them as they move through the customer journey, right? It's going to take a few interactions at the very least in which you're showcasing expertise and delivering value for a consumer to want to move forward with you, sign a contract, and actually go see homes. The third is a scalable system based on automations and action plans. You know, this is Sierra's secret sauce. We are the market leader in enabling decision trees and if-then statements that not only trigger tasks for your agents, but trigger action plans in an automated fashion that allow leads to be nurtured in a continuous and very smart fashion. You know, the fourth, and this is something that we'll unpack, I'd imagine, on a pretty deep level with Aaron, is accountability, right? It's one thing to put a system in place. It's another thing to actually hold folks accountable to how that system should be working and their role within the system itself. And if there aren't negative or positive consequences based on the actions they're taking within the system, then behavior won't change, right? And how do you make sure the system is set up to detect the good behavior, detect the bad behavior so you can act on it? And then lastly, this is where the relationship with SISU is so important, is your ability to interrogate the system and find weak spots, find holes, find gaps, or find things that are working so you can double down is really, really important, right? Real estate and real estate tech is changing as fast as any industry in the world right now. All of us are dealing with unprecedented change with respect to the fallout from the NAR settlement, and this philosophy of continuous learning and a willingness to change, both from a team leader and an agent perspective, is mission critical. And so, sorry, this is kind of like an ugly, wordy slide, but like what I want folks to think about this slide as is really like your checklist, right? So I've given you the 5 things really great teams do well when it comes to converting leads, and here's underneath those 5 things what needs to be true in your system. And I'll say this at the end of the webinar as well, but what we can do is set up a kind of a training session for folks on this call specifically to walk through how you get this stuff set up in detail, because the holistic organism is really important. Looking at any of these just in a vacuum is incomplete, right? So speed to lead, you got to make sure your leads are tagged, right? Whether that's they've not been viewed or they haven't been called, that's what drives the accountability and action. You got to make sure your leads are routed to the right person. Like, what is your philosophy on how leads are divvied up? What is the timeline upon which they're divvied up? And what are the consequences for not taking actions when they're part of that lead routing system? Reminders for your agents, right? Not everyone's perfect, right? And we all know agents are distracted in some ways, or out in the field, and they need reminders to act, right? And a system that enables that reminder is really important. And then lastly is consequences. And I'll keep saying this. It's something I think about with my own team all the time. How do we make sure we're rewarding the good behavior and quote unquote punishing the bad behavior such that we end up driving the right activity? Value-driven interactions. I've already talked about this a bit, but it all comes down to data, right? Do you know whether or not your lead is a homeowner? Do you know whether or not they're married? Do you know what their job status or history is? Do you know what their, if they have a mortgage? Do you know how much equity value they have in their home? Getting that data allows you to have such a more valuable set of interactions with your client, and there are a variety of ways to do this, right? You could hire a VA to do it. There are tools like Revaluate that we plug into to do it. Fellow now does it. Think about your data strategy, because it's one thing to collect a lead and get an email and a phone number. It's a whole nother thing to get the ancillary data around that lead to create a holistic picture that you can then act on. And then content, right? I mentioned this already, but our highest performing customers are thinking about how do we produce high value, but also kind of specific content that not only gets recognized by Google from an SEO perspective, but then I could share through the customer journey with my leads, right? If someone's interested in a specific neighborhood or a specific price point, or they're moving from far away, there are things that you can say and publicize online that only position you as the expert in your market. Scalable system. We'll get into some screenshots here as to how this all gets brought to life. But ultimately, when you're generating more leads, you need those leads routed. You need automations associated with them. And then you need action plans that allow them to be nurtured automatically over time. Driving accountability, right? There are smart filters in Sierra that allow the manager of the account to understand, okay, these leads were assigned to these agents. They haven't been called in 24 hours. Therefore, I need to take action and do some coaching or drive some consequences through the team. I think the second bullet under accountability goes underappreciated, which is the agents need to understand the why behind the system, right? You're asking them to do certain things. You're requiring them to do certain things along certain timelines and deadlines. And the why there is really important. Otherwise, kind of the purpose behind the action is misunderstood and is not enough value is placed on it. And then system evolution, right? And this is where SISU comes in. The ability to pressure test the system, garner insights from the system in a way that therefore allows you to make changes, right? And you should be making changes somewhat frequently without embarking on change fatigue. So you can go to the next slide, Zach. So I apologize for how small the font is on this slide, but what I wanted to bring to life is how can this come together from a speed to lead kind of scalable system and agent accountability perspective. And there are two separate workflows on this slide. The workflow on the left is basically an automation around making sure a lead gets contacted within 3 minutes of registering on your site. So what this says is a new lead has been assigned to a listing or a buyer agent 3 minutes ago. And the other criteria that it's associated with is the agent that it's been assigned to hasn't viewed it yet. And it's from one of these sources, right? It was generated through PPC, it was generated through realtor.com, et cetera. If those three things are true, right? If this lead registered more than 3 minutes ago, if it was assigned to an agent, and if it was from these three sources, then a reminder is sent to there's a tag added to the lead, which means that the lead is not viewed. Then an email is created to remind the agent, so kick him in the ass and say, hey, go reach out to this person. This is someone who's showing interest. We need to get in front of it, and we need to be first to contact them before they go to some other competitor's website, do the same thing, and they call them first, right? So speed to lead through a set of relatively simple automations allows your team to prioritize these folks as they're coming in and get out in front of your competition. This next workflow is ensuring that a lead has been called within 24 hours, right? And so the criteria set here are a new lead was assigned to a buyer agent 1 day ago. The other criteria that are true is that there were no phone calls placed within the last day, right? If you have someone registering for your site, you're not calling them within 24 hours, then you're fundamentally failing. Why are you paying to generate those leads? Why are you paying to generate that content, right? And also if the lead source is from one of these sources. And again, it sends a reminder to the agent But at the same time, what it can do is actually remove the agent from the lead routing such that they know that if they're not calling these leads within 24 hours, then they're not going to get the privilege, frankly, of being part of lead routing and getting these leads that you're paying for to generate, right? And so these are two relatively simple workflows that can be built on in a very robust fashion, but I think shows the power of, like, when you're paying for leads, there are certain things the system can do to surface the hand raisers, to make sure they're getting touched, and to ensure that your agents are, frankly, following the rules, for lack of a better term. If we move to the next slide, Zach, this is the end of my spiel. But as we segue into Brian's piece, I think it's like this combination is really, really powerful. What Sierra allows you to do is construct and implement a lead nurture system, and what SISU allows you to do is interrogate it, right? Is it good? Is it working? Is it not? Why? How do we fix it, right? And when you have that full picture, your business can take off.
Love it. I put this in here, QR code. If you're not on Sierra, you're not looking at Sierra, make sure you go scan that QR code, grab a time with them, talk through, see if there's, something you can do. Peter, I did want to ask you, we got a really good question here in the chat. So before we move into Brian's, I'm really curious. This is from Justin Miller, which, by the way, Justin, you must have like a screw loose or something, because I heard you hiked Whistler Mountain 8 times in 36 hours. So hopefully
who would do that?
From that? Who would do that, right? Justin asked, Peter, and I think this is a great question for you. With the industry in flux, I'm curious to hear what is changing in the lead conversion process. What are you guys seeing that's like different, maybe even in just the last few months than it's been in the past decade when it comes to lead conversion?
Yeah. So I'd say 2 primary things. Sierra, so the first one I'm going to sound like a broken record, comes to the availability of important data that is at your fingertips and you should figure out how to capture, right? Like the proliferation of information across the internet and across different sources has created noise, but also created a real opportunity for a business like a real estate brokerage or a real estate team. And so it's, in my opinion, one of the best investments you can make is ensuring that the data hygiene within your database and the data completeness within your database is there. When you think about what is the biggest asset for any real estate team or real estate brokerage, it's your lead database, right? If you didn't have that, what else would you have? You just wouldn't have anyone to call. And so whether it's new leads coming in, appending information to those, whether it's old leads that inevitably buy or sell a home every few years, if you have the information that enables you to then engage them on an ongoing basis, engage them in a personalized way, that's how you're going to win. So I think this focus on not just getting email and phone number, but getting other information around a lead is what's been game changing for a bunch of our teams. And there are a bunch of different outlets to do that, right? You could hire a VA, you could go with a data enrichment service. And I'd be more than happy to kind of talk to other folks offline about how we've seen folks be successful. I'd say the second piece is Sierra was really the market leader with respect to quote unquote like automations, right? Which is become, I would say, somewhat of the standard, and then those have proliferated across the industry. But a lot of folks are calling AI automations, and we're not calling it a misnomer. I think at the end of the day, there's a customer journey that every team lead believes is the right one and puts customers on a happy path, right? And it's the automations and the action plans that enable that to happen in a scalable way. And so I would just be careful in engaging bleeding edge AI tools or things that are branded as AI in a world where really what you need is a software that supports an if-then decision tree that puts customers on a happy path, because that's proven to work time and time again. Even in this age of chatbots or voice AI, et cetera, there's no replication for a in-person phone call from an agent who's a knowledge broker to a consumer who needs that knowledge. So
I love it. Aaron, I'd be curious just to hear real quick before we jump into Brian's stuff. what are you seeing change? Like, what are some of the big changes you're seeing in the lead conversion game, along with Justin's question?
Well, I think especially with online leads, and we're gonna talk about Google and pay-per-click and those types of leads rather than maybe your Zillow and your Realtor.com leads. Historically, it was a little bit more of a softer lead, a longer lead, but we're seeing them convert faster. I think Peter nailed it. I'll tell you what I wrote down. Demonstrating value and knowledge. If you can't demonstrate value and knowledge, if you can't establish deep rapport with the clients, you're halfway out the door already. Speed to lead. I think the quote is you're 100 times more likely to connect with a potential lead if you try to connect with them within the first 5 minutes. So, and that was like a study by, I think, a lead response management study. So that first 5 minutes is going to be the key. And then quality contacts, which that's why we love Sierra for this, is the key. Having a good quality drips, having videos, having landing pages, having stuff that shows that you're the expert, that you're the digital mayor of your city. And then that gets them there. So, and then Peter, I'm going to take you up on that training session for this call. Huh? That was the other note I wrote down.
Yeah, I see Josh and Candy having questions, and I'll make sure I follow up with them.
Good stuff. Yeah, we'll do a lot of Q&A here at the end. So if I didn't get to your question, Justin, I thought your question was awesome, so I wanted to hit it right away. Okay, Brian, let's dive into this. So
yeah, Zach, before we do, I just wanted to address something on that question as well for Justin. Something that I'm seeing, obviously, the lead follow-up is done in the CRM, but once an appointment gets set, if you not only set the appointment, but we have a lot of teams who are now using the client portal to actually get all their pre-listing information or their pre-buyer information, those packets out through the client portal, that is going to increase your conversion. Because if you go on an appointment and they already have all that information in front of them, I can tell you this, when I sold real estate, just by starting to deliver pre-listing packets, I went from a 25% to a 75% conversion on getting a listing signed when I went on that appointment. So make sure you're doing that kind of stuff as well. Sometimes we just think it's all about the lead follow-up. It's also about how you show up and, to that appointment, make sure you get it signed.
I love it. Yeah, let's dive into this more, because I think there's a huge opportunity between, obviously lead generated to appointment set is so critical, but all the money's in appointment set all the way down to close. And I think a lot of people put themselves in a position or in a system where they don't have as much influence on those conversion ratios from appointment set down to close, which is where all the money is, right? And they just don't put themselves in a right situation to actually optimize that. So I know you're going to talk more to that, but let's dive in.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I want to talk about, right? Like, if you guys, we all know that one of the ways to grow a team and to grow your business is to add more agents. So we all know that, right? But let's put that aside for a minute. Because if you had to create, let's say, between now and the end of the year, a meaningful increase in your business, right? What would you do? How would you do it? And I think we all know the answer. And Zach, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. But the answer is lead conversion, right? So we've been talking about lead conversion, and really lead conversion on following up on your leads, which is a critical piece. And in addition to that, I just want to point out, like, I'm sorry, I'm missing something there. Okay, so on the lead conversion side, let's go to the next slide, Zach. But a lot of teams struggle to understand the inputs to the outputs. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you have leads coming in order to get leads coming out, you need to understand your lead measures and your lag measures, right? So what's happening there? What are your leading indicators? What are your lagging indicators? And so many of us have tried to do this in spreadsheets for so long that I really want to take some time to really point out the difference here. But this is an example of just a snapshot page of a month of SISU. And if you look at this, you're going to see something similar to what you would see if you were looking at this in spreadsheets. And this is the only way that most people in this industry look at things. And I want to point this out because it's really important as you look at how are we converting on leads. Let's just say in this, if we look at this, we see buyer appointments set and buyer appointments met, 46 and 23. So in this month, I'm looking at a month snapshot. You can see there's homes that have gone under contract and homes that have closed. But what most people don't really grasp is that those are unrelated. So why are they unrelated? Any ideas out there? They're unrelated because the people who I set an appointment with and meet an appointment with this month are usually not the people that I get under contract. Sometimes they are, sometimes they move really quick, but sometimes those under contract and closed came from the people I met with last month, right? Or possibly the month prior. And so something that I think is new to a lot of people in this industry is something called cohort analysis. And I want to really point this out. To my knowledge, SISU is the only place you can get this kind of information in this industry. You're never going to get this from a spreadsheet. But what this points out is all of the appointments that let's just say if I were to take Q2, we're just here at the beginning of Q3. I want to know all of my appointments that got set in Q2. Where are they today? Okay. Now, so what I'm going to see here is I can never have a conversion rate more than 100%. Why? Because all I'm doing is I'm taking the leads that I set an appointment with in Q2, and I'm looking at where are they today. Does that make sense? So of those 215 buyer appointments that were set, I've met with 129, or my team has, right? And my team now has 54 signed. And 23 of those are under contract and 21 of those are closed. So where's the biggest breakdown here? And if you can understand where the biggest breakdown is, and I see a few of them, but from met to signed, 41%, that's a pretty big breakdown. What could I do to increase that from 41% to 75%? And that's where I'm talking about making little shifts, such as putting a pre-listing packet and a pre-buyer packet in a client portal before you arrive, so they already think you're their agent before you show up, right? That's one example. But even signed to under contract, yes, maybe some of those are still hot and active, but what's going on with those leads? I need to understand that. So then if I take that and I drill into the next level, I want to see this on different lead sources. And I also want to see this for different agents. So you can actually sort in SISU Next. This is all stuff that's only in SISU Next. For those of you who are SISU customers, you can't do this in SISU Classic. So this was added about a year or less than a year ago, about 6 months ago, I guess. But this will allow you to not only see that information for your whole team, but to see it on a per agent basis and a per lead source basis. Now, combine that with a lead source ROI report, and now you're going to know exactly where you're getting an ROI in your lead sources so that you can spend money investing in the lead sources with Sierra that are actually doing well, right? Versus spending the money where people are not converting the leads. And so it's really important that you understand that. So again, I want to emphasize the follow-up is critical happening in the CRM, right? And that's a massive part of conversion. We all know that. And having SISU is going to help make sure that your agents are in your CRM more often, because all the data that's in the CRM is what's spitting out the reports in SISU. So then once an appointment gets set, the data flows from Sierra into SISU, and now I can track these conversions and understand what's going on with these leads from that point forward. So on that point, Zach, I just want to open it up to questions and see what Aaron has to add to that.
Yeah, let's dive into this. I'll just add 2 cents here, Brian, because I love what you said. We've had so many times where people are like, I'm not getting my return on X lead source. It's not working. And Aaron loves this because he's like, it's not the lead source. I promise you it's not the lead source, right? But this lead source isn't working. Most of the time it's not the lead source. Sometimes it is, but it's not working. But when you really dissect the numbers and you look at it at the agent level, you're like, well, no, actually this agent's crushing it with this lead source and these agents aren't. And you're able to route the leads better, going back to Peter's, lead routing, to get the right leads, the right opportunities, the right people where they'll actually convert, right? So we find that all the time. You're not getting an ROI on your lead source with these agents, but with these agents, you're getting a huge ROI. You actually need to spend more on that lead source, but you need to get them going to the right agents with the right standards, right? And that's what's so powerful. That's what I love so much about, what you're talking about, Brian. But let's dive into
one thing to add to that, Zach, and that is, I believe if you are on a real estate team today, there is no shortage of leads. Like, I think that's actually one of the problems, is there are too many leads. And so agents have a hard time following up more than 1, 2, or 3 times, right? They just don't do it. And so by keying in on these certain things that have been talked about today, it's not about getting more leads. It's about converting on the leads you already have.
Yep. All right, Aaron. So I want to tee one question up for you, and we have a lot in the chat, so we're going to be hitting you from all angles here. But you sit down with a team that and say you take on a new client. I know you have a big waiting list for new clients, but say you take on a new client, and you see that they're struggling with lead conversion, right? Or maybe they think they're struggling with lead conversion, or maybe they don't know at all. Like, where do you start? How do you start to approach this problem? What do you look at? Where do you start with improving lead conversion?
Great question. And historically, this is why SISU becomes so powerful. It's, there's a famous statistician, Carl Pearson. It's called Pearson's Law. And anything that we track and measure improves, and anything that we track, measure, and report accelerates, right? That's the modern English version of it. This was in the 1920s that he wrote this, and he was a contemporary of like Albert Einstein. So that should give you an idea of the level of the stats here. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to dig into the lead stats. We're going to dig into the stats with by individual user and by lead source, and we're going to see what the follow-up is, what the return is, what the lead to conversation to appointment to appointment taken is. And historically, by having by my teams that are using SISU, we have all that data readily available to us, and it's there. What they don't realize is that in real estate, how we gather and how we manage and how we use the information, will determine whether we close deals or whether we miss the opportunity. And I think Brian said it really well. I think it's 80% of sales require 5 or more follow-up interactions. Yet 44% of salespeople give up after 1 try. And that's not unusual at all in even our teams. We see it every single day in very successful teams where we have to have, back to what Peter was saying, consequences. If you are failing to follow up, you're no longer on lead flow. And if to get back on lead flow, you have to go into the pond and convert from the pond or do some of these types of things. And if you're following up regularly and doing this, maybe we're using skills-based routing and you're going to get more leads. So we're going to have incentives with contests to get them doing the activities that we need them to do. But we're also going to coach and mentor them to share with them why this is important and how it's going to affect them. Right? They need to understand consistent follow-up is going to, and staying top of mind is going to demonstrate commitment to their borrower or to their seller.
Love it. So going deeper, let's say, you've started to dive in, you've started to understand maybe where some of the breakdowns are. Derek has a question here in the chat. What do you do in regards to developing the skills, agent development, developing their skills to convert leads?
Great question, and super difficult. And Derek, you may not like it because I run into this on a regular basis, but I'll use myself as a good example. When we had 280 offices and 3,000 employees, which was 100 agents and about 2,900 mortgage originators, I still did skills practice, script practice, role play, and prospecting with my team every day. So as the CEO of a company, an 8-figure company, I'm still doing script practice and role play and every single day and doing prospecting. Now I'm prospecting and recruiting big teams while they're prospecting and following up on leads. But if you're not constantly sharpening your skills, your competition is, and they're going to beat you.
I mean, it's the same thing with any professional team, right? If you have an NBA team that's struggling, they go back to the basics, they start working on defense, and all of a sudden they start winning games again, right?
Exactly. Look at Kobe. Look at, follow Tim Grover, read Tim Grover's book.
Yes.
I mean, the best people are practicing all the time. because I have, well over 10,000 hours of coaching, and I did 300 hours of coach training last year to get my professional coaching certification. Why with all those skills, and not to mention, but in the business, for 30 years, am I still practicing and training? Because that's the only way we stay on the top of our game and get better. It's not that I want to be the best, which I do, of course. Thanks, JJ. But, I also want to be the best for my team. And the only way that can measure me is by you guys succeeding. So how do I do that? I get better. Yeah.
So since we're on the sports analogies, you got me thinking. I love baseball, right? Baseball is a weird sport because if you succeed 30% of the time, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame. You're one of the best ever, right? But sales is even harder because when we're talking conversion rates on leads, we're talking 1% to 2%, maybe 3%, and you're well in the green and you're turning a profit. So this question comes for Delancey because with it being such a, prospecting specifically being such a game where you're getting so much rejection, Delancey's saying a lot of agents are getting discouraged in the current market. Like, what are you seeing work to keep people motivated, keep people excited, keep the energy up?
Look, I think you hit those numbers right. I think the average conversion for Google online leads PPC is about 1%. I have teams that are averaging after a year in the 7% range, right? The historical average is 2 to 5% from Google and from the major studies that have been done. But what people need to know is they need to understand those averages and understand how those averages change when you continue to follow up and provide value, when you continue to be that digital mayor. I've had clients that converted Google leads that were 7 or 8 years old this last month. So as you're building up your database and you're building up your follow-up, you're going to see some of these older leads come back in and you're going to convert them. Plus you're going to be getting referrals. If your database sells their home every 7 years, that means for every 100 people you have in your database, even old leads, there are 7 transactions a year there, plus the people they could refer you to. So we need to make sure that the agents know that on certain leads, you could expect in the first 180 days, let's say a 1%. So for every 100 leads, you should be out there showing and writing a contract for about one person. And your contact's still only going to be at about 15%. So for every 100 leads, you're only going to get through to 15 of those people, unless you're really, really good. So if you don't understand that going in, you're going to get disheartened coming out. I was the guy that knew that for every 20 conversations I had in a set appointment, for every three listing appointments I went on, I took 2 listings. So when people told me to go to hell and hung up on me, I was like, woohoo, one closer. I'm just dialing the next call. Like, thanks for not wasting my time. And if you can't get yourself into that mindset of like, it's a numbers game and I'm just going to keep working it and keep establishing value, then you're going to struggle. My people that struggle with it, I say, mix in your database. Make a couple database calls, get your mindset back a little bit because they love you. They want to talk to you. They're like, oh my God, thank you for calling. Set a coffee appointment and then get back on your leads.
Aaron, that's so powerful. Delancey, I want to add to that because if your agents don't know those stats, like if they don't know for every, call it 80 conversations I have, I get a closing, or if they don't know for every 10 appointments I go on, I get a closing, or I get 3 closings. Like, they need to know that. And if they know that, all of a sudden it becomes a game. And we just talked about these sports analogies. Real estate's no different. It's a game. Sales is a game, and you need to know your numbers. If you know your stats, then you can get excited and know, okay, great, I'm on number 5. I know on number 8, I'm going to get a closing. That makes it easy. So I would add to that one other thing, which is, if you're not running sales contests, like, how do you keep your people excited? Run a monthly sales contest. Maybe you don't do it every month, but every other month. But I had Tom Ferry on one time, and I asked him what should you run a contest on, and he said on appointments met, appointments met, appointments met. And then what should the next one be? Appointments met, appointments met. And the reason he says that is because the more appointments you go on, the more you're going to put under contract. It's the lead measure that has the biggest impact on actually closing homes.
Peter, anything to add on just keeping people motivated, keeping people on the phones, keeping them prospecting?
Yeah, that was all gold. I'd say that like a different way of saying something that Brian said was like, what good looks like in this industry actually involves a ton of rejection, right? And like, the sooner that you get comfortable with that, the more success you're going to have. Because I love what Aaron said around, hey, a rejection is another tally on the board that puts me that much closer to having a successful outcome. It's the same in software sales. Like, you guys know this, it involves a lot of rejection. And I think the sooner that team leaders understand from a personality type and a thick skin perspective who's actually going to be able to withstand that and who isn't, the better off both you and your agents are, right? Because let's be clear, like, not everyone is cut out to be a real estate agent, right? And you need to be honest with yourself and your agents around, hey, like, is this working, right? And then I think the second piece is, I talked a lot about consequences earlier. I think it's really important to celebrate success and to make sure that, like, the positive consequences are also making their way through the business. And something I think about at my own company all the time is, hey, a lot of shit goes wrong on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, but a lot of stuff goes right. And how do we make sure that, like, we're screaming from the rooftop about the stuff that's going right? Because that's only going to make people more excited. And when they see other people have success, they feel like they can have success. And too often it remains siloed in ways that I think hurts morale.
Yeah, we have some teams that do exactly what you're saying exceptionally well, Peter, where they celebrate their wins, but it's super strategic how they do it. Because, let's say I'm a team owner, I go to a conference, and one of my peers is like, man, you guys got to check out Fellow, right? You got to add Fellow into your mix, right? We're getting so many listings from Fellow. And you come back to your team, you're like, yeah, we're putting Fellow in place, this new lead source. My agents are going to be all excited about it. Well, you need to quickly highlight when an agent goes out and sets an appointment with a Fellow lead, hey, highlight that in your team meeting, right? Show that success, and everyone else starts thinking and believing, and that belief transfers into their calls, and you get higher lead conversion, right? And it's like anything that you want to see more of in your team, recognize and highlight people in your team meetings for that. Not only does, like, that is like one of the best things you can do to retain your agents, because most salespeople crave recognition, they love it, right? But also you're driving that belief in whatever lead source it is specifically that you want to see better conversion on. You're just showing that it works, because they won't see it otherwise, right? Or they might not hear about it. So I love the celebration part. Anything else to add on this topic? I got another question queued up here that's really good.
Yeah, I want to throw something on the celebration and accountability. Listen, if you don't celebrate your wins, it's a direct line to burnout, right? So we're all working hard. We all have more than we can possibly get done in a day. So if you don't have the little celebrations now and then, you can burn out. And I think accountability is probably the biggest thing that I run with. I can show you a video that we did live on the Tom Ferry Elite page last year, where I have a client that's got 300 agents, had to shave his head live on the page. And they shaved half his head and took off with the razor. Like it was brutal. Or where I've had clients that have to fly to Park City and shovel my driveway and then fly home. Like, we set up fun accountability. We do some stuff, but I have an accountability with one of my clients right now that we have to each get 5 workouts in a week. And every time I miss, I have to send them $100. I've had to send them a couple $100, and it's getting tiring for me. Right. So anybody that says accountability doesn't work for them is saying, I'm not committed to doing this. If you said I owed you $1,000 for every coaching call I missed today, I'd say, let's make it 10,000. I'm not going to miss any calls. That's not going to happen. I would put caveats, like if the internet goes out or if somebody gets sick or something, but short of that, I'm 100% committed. Right. And if you're committed, you're going to put some strength behind it. So
JJ says, true story. Aaron threatened us to clean his toilets in his Cabo home if we didn't perform. Did they perform, Aaron?
They performed.
They performed.
Oh yeah.
I love the consequences, right? The fun consequences, but accountability, or the way I've heard it, standards without any consequences, just a suggestion, and no business runs well on suggestions, right? So, okay, so going a little deeper on some of the lead conversion, Rachel asked a really good question here, and I think this is an important topic. She's asking about automation, right? So, and she's saying, Aaron, do you encourage automated texts and emails for follow-up? Or do you find that agents who manually view leads as they come in and reach out to them via phone call have a higher conversion rate? She's an ops manager, and the dilemma is she sets leads up on emails and texts. Well, sometimes the agents don't call because they feel like the lead's already being taken care of. So I'm curious your two cents.
Really good question.
Yeah. So, listen, once again, there are different levels to leads, and every lead source has a different follow-up. And as far as I'm concerned, what I have my teams do with a Zillow lead, especially if there's Zillow Flex or a Google Online lead, PPC, or even a Google Business Profile lead that comes in. Some leads are much stronger than others, and we have different follow-up. But we're just going to talk about, typical online leads, Google PPC. I absolutely think that all of our follow-up needs to be customized. We will customize, salutation in the subject line. We will, because we know that emails with personalized subject lines are 26% more likely to get open, according to like Campaign Monitor. So tailoring content to the lead's interest increases engagement, right? And builds trust. But with that said, everybody that I teach what's called a 15-15 formula, where it's 15 contacts over 15 days. And 5 of those are emails, 5 of them are text messages, and 5 of them are calls. So there is no automation only high-end conversion. You have to call, you have to establish rapport, you have to establish yourself as an expert. And if you don't, your conversion is just going to drop dramatically. I'm not saying that you cannot convert leads with just emails and text. Your conversion will just be much lower. So they need to learn that the calls have to take place. You believe it or not, 15 touches over 15 days is not a lot. It's way less than what I would do on a Zillow lead. On a Zillow lead, I'm doing 15 touches in 7 days. So it just depends on what that lead is. And I'm happy to share the whole formula. I can send you a PDF and you can send it out, or they can go to my page, gotcoach.com. And I think there's a post on there that has the link to the formula that we use. And it works even better when you're working in, something like Sierra, so that you have fully automated action plans. So that as things are happening, things are changing, and people are being tasked. If the tasks aren't happening, the agents aren't making the calls.
Yeah, I would add, there was a point in the conversation earlier, someone in the chat, when we were talking about what's changing in the lead conversion game, and she said that just the sheer volume of spam that's coming through, right? You've got AI sending emails to everybody, right? And what's happened, at least for me, and I know for a lot of people I talk to, our filter for what we actually look at in the inbox or in our texts, like we're really good at developing these filters of saying that's marketing, like that's spam, and just shoving it aside. We don't even read it, right? So, and even tracking open rates is difficult because half the email clients will just, tell you it's open when it wasn't. So you get a lot of false negatives or false positives there. Point is, personalization, it's hard. It's really hard to fake it, right? It's really hard. And especially you can't do it with a phone call, right? Phone call is the most personalized one-to-one communication channel. So we're seeing people win more and more on the phone as the competition is trying to automate their way out of work. And the people doing the work and picking up the phone, their conversation to appointment rates are only going up, right? And that's where you win, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Let me touch on that.
Aaron,
go ahead.
Sorry. I just want to piggyback on a couple of things you said, because I think they were really important points. So like automations can be a superpower, but you just can't let them be a crutch, is kind of how we talk about it with our customers. And sometimes the only way to position the automations to truly work their magic is by having a phone call first, right? So if you have that phone call, that you then understand the circumstances. Why are they moving? Where are they looking to move? What price point? Like, what are other things to consider? Because once you have that context, you can now set them on an action plan and put them on e-alerts that are tailored to exactly what they're looking for, right? And so assuming that you can just put any old lead that comes in from any old source on some automated customer journey is just not going to work, right? The automations need to be paired with this intentional, like, person-to-person conversation, and that's where the magic happens. That's how you scale.
And a lot of times, to Peter's point, if everything is automated, which you want automations, but what happens is a lot of agents get in their mind they don't need to follow up, and you can't allow that to happen, or you're going to get in trouble and you're going to have extremely low conversion. So somehow you need to inspire and motivate your people and set standards of how much they need to follow up and in what time frames.
Love that. I'm gonna touch one more thing on that, because I think it's really important that people understand this, and I see this a lot. It's always a multi-channel approach, you guys. So conversations and calls have to be part of that. And I noticed a question about ISAs. If we have a great ISA department making the calls, setting appointments, that's fine. The agents don't have to do it. Sometimes the ISAs are better than the agents. Sometimes they're more on top of it. That's their job. As long as you've trained that department right. But what I will tell you is this: what I see a lot is that we live in this diverse atmosphere of millennials and Gen Z and Gen X and boomers. And some people want to only have phone calls, and some people only want to have text messages, and some people want to communicate via email. And you need to understand what your client's communication preference is and deliver to that preference. Let your ego go. It doesn't matter that you want to talk to them if they want to text. If they want to text, start texting. They're the client, you're not, right? And when you use multiple channels and when you pay attention to it, once again, your conversion rates go up by like 20 or 30%. It's pretty insane at how high it can go, so that's what I had to add to that.
All right.
Hey, Zach, Delancey has a question here about ISA calls. And all I would say, and I know we're short on time here, Delancey, but anytime, this is why some of the companies like Upcity and Zillow do live transfers. Anytime you can do a live transfer and do an intro from an ISA to an agent, you're going to have more success. So.
All right. Well, I could go for another hour. I know people are already starting to get into there. Hopefully you have appointments. Hopefully you got team trainings. You got full schedule today, everyone. I know you do, Aaron. So want to be aware of time. Just before we wrap this thing up, Aaron, any closing remarks, any words of wisdom that we can take with us into our days to win?
Yeah, we'll use. I love using Tom Ferry quotes, you guys, because Tom's the best at it. You guys, Tom would have told you his key points this year is number one, it's not a time management problem. It's a prioritization problem. You have to prioritize this. If you don't prioritize this, you're not going to be successful, right? I know it's hard, but being broke is hard also. So you just have to choose what hard you want. If you think that I love doing 12 hours of coaching calls 3 days a week, you're wrong. Doing 23 calls is hard for me, but I also take 4 days off every week. Right. So I stack what I need to stack and I deliver what I need to deliver. I would ask you, when's the last time you did 12 hours of prospecting? Because I'm guessing none of you guys have. Right. So step up and do this and you're going to be super successful. I promise.
Great advice. Thank you, Aaron.
Amen.
Thank you, Aaron. You're the man. Peter, thank you for being on here as well. Brian, this has been a lot of fun. Recording will go out to you all soon. I'm going to drop some links here in the chat real quick. If you want to learn more about Sierra, there's a link here. Let me just get this real quick. And I'll send these out via email too. We're going to learn more about SISU. And then Aaron, your link was gotcoach.com, right?
Yeah, just send them there. They can reach out to me and my team there, and I can connect them into Tom Ferry if they're looking for coaching. We'd love to get them on board.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been great. Hopefully you've all had some value from this that you can take back to your teams and win more. Thanks again, everyone. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, team.
Thanks, Zach.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya. Goodbye.